Web Development 101, Lesson 5, Part 2B. I had to break it into chunks here. We are at positioning elements. So far we've learned how to change the position of our elements using the CSS properties such as margin and float. We've also learned that the margin value of auto centers the elements left to right or horizontally on the screen. The position CSS property, when used with top, right, bottom, and left properties, can help us make way more complex layouts that are going to look super cool. So here are some of the most common positions. Make sure I didn't miss something here. No, I didn't. Okay. The common positions that you'll see. So static, that's the default value. The top, right, bottom, and left properties will not affect the position of the element at all. Relative, the element is attached to the original position. The top, left, right, and bottom properties will be applied to offset the element from the original position. Absolute, the element is detached from its original position. It's positioned according to the container that has position set. So whatever the container it's in, it follows that. And then fixed, the element is detached from the original position. It's positioned according to the screen viewport. So this one's kind of hard to understand. So even when you scroll down the page, the position is fixed. So this is ideal for, like, this navigation bar up here stays put. Do you see how this stays put when I roll up and down the screen? This header is fixed. It's kind of like sticking it there like a sticky note that won't leave. It's excellent to have on websites, especially for your navigation bars. So let's look at what those look like to be able to, like, understand them a little bit more visually. So look at the static. Static, no change. Relative, so it's attached to its original position, offset based on original position. Detached from original position, offset based on the container. So this container must have had a left. And this is detached from its original position, but see how we're scrolling down? It's staying put even though we're scrolling down. This is going to follow us all the way down the screen. This is easiest seen by doing it. And I know that most of you learn in that same way. That's how I learn. I need to see it in action and do it to be able to really understand what it is that I'm doing. So let's look at moving things around. So here's an example that I wish they would make us do ourselves, but whatever, where they've used position and the top, right, left, and bottom properties to move elements in the page around. It says change the CSS properties below and see how the box layout is affected. So we are going to mess with it, yay. So we're going to mess with the position on here. So you can see, if you look, absolute, absolute, relative, and relative. And then each of these containers are there. So we're going to mess with what the values are here. So let's go container. If we do absolute, these moved over. You see how those moved over? And then let's do static and see what happens. See how it's outside of that box? It's outside of the container because blue box is at the top right. Red is at the bottom right. See how it all the way to the right of the page? If I take that box though and I change that back to absolute, that's where it's making me scroll a little bit, but staying within the box. And then if we do fixed, it's not going to go anywhere. This is actually going to be pretty. Let's change the green one to be fixed, and the blue one to be fixed. So watch what happens when I scroll down the screen. I mean, we can't scroll far enough for that to work. Darn. I need to add more to it. So let me add. I'm just going to paste a bunch of text in here. I need a huge amount of text. Let's see what they have for, here we go. Baxter's Hollow. I'm going to go hiking there this weekend. So let's pop that in here, paste it. All right, so now watch these boxes. When I scroll, do you see how the blue and the green follow me down the page? That's fixed. That means they're going to follow me all the way down all the time. And that's something you would do with a navigation menu, like this one up here, to put it where, where we want it to be. I'm going to take the yellow box and move it a little bit so you can see it slide through there. Okay, so that is positioning. So we're going to mess with these positions and learn a little bit more about them with some challenges. So a sticky navigation menu bar, this is like my absolute favorite thing to use. Is a navigation bar that does not disappear from view when you scroll down the web page. So we're going to change the navigation element that's in here to fix to create a sticky bar. So see how when I scroll down my page right now, see they have a bunch of Latin text in here. They should have put some fun information about a place to hike. We're going to make it so this follows us down the screen. So this is the navigation menu right here. So what we need to do is look at what we did up in here. We looked at position, and then we're going to position it to be fixed. So we're going to go to the navigation menu and say position fixed. Now when I scroll, it's going to go all the way down. I don't like that the width adjusted when I did that. That's gross. Put the width to 100% to fix that because I don't like it. I wonder if it's going to get mad at me for that. Should we see if it does? Yeah, that's why. What does it want me to do? The right and left property. What does it matter if I do right and left? It doesn't matter. I suppose we could put that in there since it wants it, but that's silly. Why would we need to do that? That's weird. All right, if it wants us to, I guess, but that's not necessary. I wonder if we get rid of this, if that will fix that. Yeah. Oh, I don't know why they didn't just do with 100%. That's me though. Whatever. There's different ways to solve problems. So now if I run this solution, it's going to like it. The other solution worked just as well, just so you know. It's always nice to try different ways to solve a problem. So let's look at background images. So we learned how to use background color to set the background color of elements as a web page. Now we're going to learn how to add images as backgrounds. So if you look in the background here, there is an image that's in the background. This can be tastefully done. Putting an image as your background, if you're going to do that, you need to be choosy about what you're going to do, and you need to make sure your content still has some sort of solid color behind it because it makes it hard to read. So from an aesthetic and a design and visual sense, you have to be careful with this. So there are many, many properties to set the background image, but we're only going to look at 4 of them for right now. The first, most important, is setting that background image. So the background image property is used to define the image or images we want to place in an element's background. So for a single image, this is the syntax or the code that we're going to use. Background image dash image colon URL, and then in parentheses and in quotes the image location. So sometimes you want to have multiple background images, and you can do that by separating with a comma and adding a second URL statement. So the first image will be the front, and the second is going to be layered beneath the first. We'll see what that looks like. And then we can repeat a background. So we can repeat a background image multiple times on a page. So sometimes you have just like a little icon or something, and you'll want to repeat that same image over and over and over again. I should try to find an example for you of that. But to do that, we use background repeat property, and then choose a value of either repeat X, which repeats horizontally, repeat Y, which repeats vertically, or no repeat, it will only appear once. You don't need to put that in there. Don't use background. If you're not going to repeat a thing, don't use background repeat. Background repeat, no repeat is kind of silly. So repeat will go across and down. So it'll cover the entire background area. So let's play with the repeat here. So this is an image right here. Let's see how it's this, and you can see it showing up over here as well. It says background image URL. It says background repeat and repeat. So it's filling it and cropping it to where it needs to. But let's try adding in repeat X. See how it only repeats X? Repeat Y. It makes another stack below it. And then our other option is no repeat, which is silly, and you just don't even need to do that. But that initial repeat will fill it both X and Y. So if you want it to repeat both left and right all over, that'd be great. Now, what I would say for this background image, I would size it. Usually I don't repeat an image that's that large, but whatever. That's what they have here. So resizing the background. Sometimes you want the background image you have to have different dimensions than the container. And that's what I was just talking about. In other situations, you want the size of the background to vary depending on the size of the screen it's being displayed on, like on a phone, if it's on a tablet, or if it's on a regular monitor. The background size property lets you customize the size. If you don't give it a value, it defaults to auto, which is whatever the dimensions of that image are. If you give it contain, it will resize without cutting it, so it will scale that image down, keeping the aspect ratio. That means keeping the width and the height the same, so it doesn't stretch or shrink or cut off part of your picture. It'll do an even shrink, both height and width. And then cover, the image will be resized to fill the entire space. It may be cut, but it's not stretched. So that's like what this is doing here, where it cuts it off. You can also specify a height and width properties to give the background custom dimensions. So it says try changing the value of the background size to see how it affects the output. So let's look at these. So right now background size is cover, which means it's going to fill the entire space, and it might be cut, which it is. See how it's cut? Here's the original image. Up here, it cuts off a chunk of it because this box is 200 by 200. Let's look at auto. See how it definitely cuts off part of the picture doing that. And then let's look at contain. So you have this leftover space on the bottom, but we're fitting the image scaled up in there. You can also give it a height and width. So height and width, let's see what those options are. So it's going to go first by width and then by height. So if I do 100 pixels, 100 pixels, it squishes it. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to let it do this. And if I turn the repeat back on, it does that, which is kind of groovy actually. So it's filling it with that image. And because I chose an even number here, it's fitting. If I go down to 50 pixels, I can put 1,000,000 of those in there. See how, like, if you find a quality image and you size it appropriately, you can make a cool background using this. You just have to be kind of careful with it because it can look really gross. Lots of people make really gross web pages. So positioning the background. You can customize the position of a background image using background position properties. So you could move it to the top, bottom, left, right, or center, or bottom right, bottom left, top right, or left center, right center. Okay, so think about that in terms of, well, I'll show you the different ones we can do. We'll look at that, okay? So let's position this image. This one says center, center. So it's centered within this 200 pixel box. I'm going to resize it, the image, so that you can see what's happening. Okay, so center, center. Do you see the gray box there? I'm going to change this background color to make it a little easier for you. It doesn't like that color. There we go. All right. So that's centered. You can see it's centered within the box that it's in. So let's look at left center. So first it's going to go left and then it will center it. So this is going to be the horizontal value and then this is the vertical. So if I did left top, that's left top. And then left bottom. Then there is center bottom and center top. And you saw center center. And then finally right top, right center, right bottom. Yeah, I think putting that color background in makes it much easier to see, because if I did that, see, you can see how it's changing a little bit, but it's not enough to, I think, see the big difference of what's moving around in that container. Okay. We have a challenge. We're going to create a header for a web page using a container element, a background image, a title, and a subtitle. So let's do this together. So the first thing we need to do is create a container that's a div element that's at least 100 pixels in height. So we're going to go down into the body and create a div and end div. All right, I do not know why it keeps doing that. And then let's, in the head, put our style right away. And style that div tag. And our height needs to be 150 pixels. Now the next step says add a background image. You can use this one, boat and water. So I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to say background image. Now remember, this is going to be URL, and then you need parentheses, and then quotes. Okay, that's not a very, I'm going to leave it that height though. We want to get it to look like this though, so we're going to have to mess with a bunch of stuff. Now, make the background image fill the entire element container. Center the image both vertically and horizontally. So we need to say background size, and we want it to cover. And then, what was their next thing? Center. So position, center, center. Okay. So now we got the boat. It's looking pretty darn close to what they had there. And then, okay, so we did that. So add a title inside the container, such as welcome. All right. Oh, welcome. I'm just going to say adventure. I'm not going to follow their rules. I'm going to do what I want. So I'm going to put a heading in there, and then add a subtitle such as this is my webpage, adventure. I'm going to do H2. Boating tours. If I got there and that's the boat they had, I would be freaking out, just so you know. H2. All right. Now, if necessary, change the color of text, obviously. So we're going to have to go into this div here and say color white so that we can actually read it. I don't, ooh. I mess with padding in here. Let's do 10 pixels. Do 5 and then 10. There we go. That's better. I don't know. Maybe it needs to be 20. Let's try 30. All right. There we go. I could even not worry about padding it from the top, but I'm going to leave it. That's fine. Yay! Let's check our code. Oh wow, we rock. Stay tuned for the next video.